All right, welcome back to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host, and today we've got a pretty cool guest on the show. He's a rebel with a cause. He's a disruptive entrepreneur, a financial freedom fighter. He's got multiple businesses. He's author of 18 best-selling business books. He's a podcaster, content creator. He's a two-time public speaking world record holder. He's a founder of the Rob Moore Foundation. He also now boxes, apparently. Last year, he had a little boxing match, and excited to have Rob Moore on the show. Rob, welcome to the Elevate Media Podcast today.
Chris, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of dive right into it. I kind of mentioned there at the end your little boxing debut last year. You fought Sam Leeds. It was a charity event. There's a little back and forth between you two, kind of some good trash talks, and I like this some smack being talked back and forth. But you raised a lot of money. Is that the first time you've ever boxed, like legitimately, or something like that?
Yeah. So the chap that I fought was 20 kilos heavier than me, and he came on my show, I came on his show, and he called me out for a fight. He just basically said, "You think you can take me on? Would you put your money where your mouth is?" And in that moment, I thought, well, yeah, I will. So, yeah, I spent 6 months training 10 times a week, and we raised $250,000 for the charities that, we respectively represent.
Mm-hmm.
And we sold 1,800 tickets. I mean, we filled more seats than many professional fighters do, apparently. So, yeah, it was quite... there was a lot of trash talk. He is a bit of a trash talker. I'm not really. I was more quiet than him.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was a great experience. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was really cool. I mean, because, I've seen stuff that you put out there being, like, disruptive. You have the Disruptor podcast, and I thought that was really cool. I think it was disruptive to your even natural, tendencies. Obviously, you've never boxed and things like that, and kind of stays true to who you are. And of course, it was for a great cause as well, and entertaining. And I think some people were saying it was better than any Logan Paul fight that they've seen, stuff like that. So that was fun. And I watched part of the fight, and you guys are going at it pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, everyone thought that I would, run away and run around him and try and just jab, but I just went in to knock him out, and I just, I didn't brawl, I had some technique, but yeah, I tried to knock him out.
Yeah, bigger than you, which is always
a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hit him with some big body shots, and it just didn't, he was just laughing at me. I didn't have the power to knock him down. But yeah, I suppose, I have a show called Disruptors. I've done over 1,000 episodes. And, being disruptive, sometimes it's just doing things a bit different than you normally would, or it's challenging or being challenged by someone in your industry to do something different. Or I often think if you don't disrupt yourself, someone is going to come along and disrupt you. So you may as well disrupt yourself before anyone else does. If you're ready that anything could go wrong any day in your business, then a lockdown or some kind of major event with losing your biggest supplier doesn't end up wiping you out.
Yeah, I think that's almost take control kind of it by disrupting yourself and continuously like putting yourself in positions that make you grow and make you get to that next level. And there's a quote on your website people can find. It says, "If you don't risk anything, you risk everything." Right? And so, how do you guide people in that? Obviously, you don't want to be. I don't know. Is there too much risk in business? Do you think there's a level that's too much risk, or do you think it's all beneficial?
Yeah, I mean, there's too much risk, of course. If you put all of your money into a meme coin, including your children's inheritance. Someone today was trying to sell me some new meme coin of a dog, then that's too much risk. But what's the bigger risk? Going all in on yourself and going all in on things, or taking no risk at all? Because if you go all in and fully back yourself, okay, you might fail in this business, you might fail in the next one, but you'll win at one point. do you know the average entrepreneur who is very successful, a millionaire, for example, will fail 3.5 businesses on average, before they get their successful one. So look, don't put all your money into one business or all your money into one investment class. Don't do outlandishly high risk strategies. But if you had a gun to my head and it's a choice between outrageous wild risk or stay in your boring dead-end 40-hour-a-week job and get pay rises that don't beat inflation and die slowly over the next 30 years, I'll take the too big a risk anytime.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, back in 2020, I quit my job right when COVID hit to try to start a business. So it's been quite the journey, and I feel like I've disrupted myself every day trying to build something and grow, this podcast, my video production agency, and, but it becomes with the reward of, I got to see both my little ones grow. There's almost 3 years old and almost a year old. And so I've been able to be there and experience a lot more of their life early on than I would have if I had a 9 to 5. So, the risk to me right now is worth that reward of that. And, with you, risk, has it always been a factor? I know you've had some near-death experience in the past, illness, a motorbike crash. Have you always been a risk taker, or were those moments kind of catalysts to you being like, hey, life's short? I need to kind of expand what I'm doing.
Yeah. So if I reflect honestly, I wouldn't say I'm an outrageous risk taker. I would say at times I'm just careless. When I crashed my motorbike and nearly killed myself, that was just being reckless. I can't say, hey, look at me, I'm a risk taker. I was just an idiot. Sometimes I just like to get things done with speed, because I think that you can spend so much time planning and talking and debating, and sometimes you can never learn everything you need to know to start. That's why I wrote my book, Start Now, Get Perfect Later. So sometimes the risk isn't that I'm going big or I'm bold or fearless. It's just that mobilizing yourself and moving forward and doing something is better than the best laid plans. So sometimes I'm careless, sometimes I'm reckless, sometimes I just want things to happen quickly. I'm the sort of person that if things end up taking too long, I either say no or yes. No, I'm not doing it. It's taking too long. There's too much life left to live to overanalyze this. Or I get to the point where it's like, well, we've done enough research now. We can't do any more, really. So let's make a decision. That being said, you can practice your risk threshold.
Okay.
I remember the first property. So I have 340 real estate units that I own with my business partner. I remember the first one we bought would have been £70,000, so not even 100,000 US. And our latest development would be about 30 million US dollar value, depending on the exchange rate, of course. So, I didn't go straight into a 30 million. I went in at 100,000 and progressively built up. So you can expand your risk threshold by moving up in stages, which I think is a smart thing to do. Chris, in the UK, we're much more risk averse than you are in America. And, I admire the more open-minded attitude to trying and failing in America than in the UK. And we have to battle here a culture that failure is deemed so bad in the UK, not as bad as some Eastern nations, but it's, just everyone kind of wants you to fail. Yeah. And I told you so, and you shouldn't try that. So, if anyone can relate to having fears of failure or what other people might think about them or how they may be judged, often risk is about removing the shackles of what other people think about you. Yeah. Because that, like, for example, we're both entrepreneurs and we love to talk about entrepreneurship. So how much of a risk really is it to quit your job and start your business? I know it's scary, and I know it's hard, and I know there's long hours, and I know, you're not guaranteed that monthly check. But how risky is it really? Because what's the worst that's going to happen? You tried it, 9-12 months, didn't work out, had to go and get a job, take a 20% pay cut, bit of damaged pride, but that's it. No one died.
Yep.
So often the thing we think is really risky, it's actually more risky not to do it, which comes back to why I have my quote, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything.
Yeah. So, and you kind of mentioned people's judgment when you take risk. Is there someone in your life when you were starting out, taking risks, trying to build something for yourself, that their opinion actually stuck with you? And maybe it was they weren't for it or they were against it, and it kind of hurt. Did you have anyone like that in your life that you're like, man, I wish they were for me?
Yeah,
that can happen.
Like no individual comes to mind, just the collective people.
Yeah.
So when I was at school, maybe aged 11 to 13, I was the fattest kid in my year.
Okay.
And I really struggled with being an outsider and not being liked, respected, admired, loved, noticed. And I was, ridiculed, obviously, a lot. And I really hated that. And sometimes people were bullying me and sometimes they weren't. And often it was more in my own head than it was in reality. I mean, I remember meeting school friends when I was 30 that I hadn't seen for 15 years. And they're like, Rob, wow, you've done really well. And I was like, yeah, but, I hated school and you were all horrible to me. And then he was like, I didn't even realize, I didn't even know. So I would say my pain isn't from a person that told me I was a loser, like a dad or a father figure. It was just a collective, everyone who didn't notice or appreciate me. But that traumatized, if you like, or was a pain I carried until I was nearly 28.
Okay.
And my dad had this big nervous breakdown in his pub in front of all of his customers. He was beaten up and arrested by the police. He was sectioned. He was put in the Ward 5, which is the kind of mental institution department of the hospital in my city. And I remember feeling like deep shame, real intense self-loathing for a few weeks, let's say. And in the end, I didn't care anymore. I didn't care if I failed. I didn't care what people thought, because I got to the point where for me, couldn't really get much worse. And that was actually quite liberating.
Yeah.
Now I have a lot to lose. We do, $30 million a year in sales in our training businesses. I have 1,350 properties that we have in our management firm, have 130 staff. Like, I have a lot to lose now if I mess up. Right. But back then I had nothing to lose. Yeah. And there's some power. So if anyone's listening and they're a bit broke or they're struggling or things aren't going well, which is a lot of people in the world we're living in today, that's power, because you don't really care. It can't really get any worse. And so in a way, what happened with my dad and me being 50 grand in debt back then, it ended up being a bit of a gift, because probably the two things I would say, Chris, that give you the greatest sense of freedom are being financially free, i.e. having enough money to do what you want and say no to what you don't want, and liberating yourself from the opinions of other people. Like, just think how many times a day you're concerned for what someone thinks or what they say, or how they respond to you. And imagine if all of those thoughts and feelings disappeared. Imagine how clear and free your mind would be. I was having a chat with my business partner today, and we were catching up, and he didn't seem in particularly a great mood. Now, chances are he was tired, or chances are he was jet lagged from his trip, or chances are, he's got some stuff going on at home. But of course, in my mind, it's like, oh, what have I done? Or what have I upset him? Or was one of my Facebook rants got him really upset? And then we were chatting about someone he's going to meet on Thursday, and I went, oh, that's interesting. And then he got really defensive. And I was thinking, you didn't know what I was thinking, and you got defensive because you presumed what I was thinking, but I actually wasn't thinking it when I said that was interesting. I actually meant that's interesting. So how much time do we waste completely getting it wrong, what people are thinking about us? And imagine if you just let go of all that.
Oh, yeah. So how can people do that if they do struggle with it? How can they still be a disruptor and let go of, caring too much about what other people say?
Yeah, this is a good question. This is something I love to talk about. So the first thing is, if you do want to be disruptive, so my show is called Disruptors.
Yep.
And, I have a brand, The Disruptive Entrepreneur. And what disruptive means is different, exciting, challenging, ruffling of some feathers, David versus Goliath. It doesn't have to mean, calling everyone out and having beef with every human on the planet. It doesn't have to be that extreme.
Yeah.
But the first thing is, know that if that is what you want to do, why would you want to be disruptive? Because you want to catch up with your competitors more quickly.
Yeah.
Because you want to make more money more quickly. Because you want to stand out and be noticed and have mind space. So you cannot not upset anyone. How can you have a brand that's disruptive and not upset anyone? That's impossible.
Right. Yeah.
So number one, know that just being you is going to upset someone. Yeah, someone's going to be upset with that Captain America shield up there because it's, it's sexist. Yeah, someone's going to be
right.
Someone.
It's always something, right? Yeah.
Like sometimes when people get upset with me, I'm like, this is really good because I'm being on brand.
Yeah.
And also be really clear in your business. So I do a lot of reverse client profiling. Which is, I don't just think about the ideal client that I want. I think about the non-ideal client. I think about the people I want to piss off. I want to piss off government officials. I want to piss off people who moan, complain, are victims, people who blame everybody else but take responsibility themselves. Yeah, I want to piss off really woke or really left or very socialist type ideologies. Those kind of ideologies. I want to pick the scabs of those. I want to piss those people off. So number one is your job is to piss people off. Number two, know who the right people are to piss off. Number three, know that you just breathing will piss people off. And then on the other side of it, know that they're probably not thinking about you. Know that they've probably got their own life that they're trying to navigate that's very hard for them. They're not obsessing over you. And also know that nearly everything you think people are thinking about you, you're wrong. Because everyone thinks, I know what you're thinking. Well, actually, you don't. Right. And most people, when they try and guess what I'm thinking, they have no idea. They get it wrong. So I don't know what you're thinking right now. And I can guess, but I don't know.
Right.
So, there's a few little tips there on dealing with what other people think about you. I would say the most powerful thing, Chris, though, beneath all of this, and I thought about not saying this just because it's a level below, a level deeper, is no one can make you think something about yourself that you don't already believe. So if anyone in any way criticizes you, it will only hurt if there's truth in it. So how you overcome that is know who you are.
Yeah.
Because if you know who you are, then the opinions of others that aren't right, that are just opinions, they can't hurt you because you know who you are.
That's really good. So like if someone does say something and it kind of, irritates you or upsets you or hurts or whatever, it's like, why? Why is that causing me to have frustration? So what internally do I need to work on that's coming up in that comment? Why am I letting that affect me, kind of thing?
Yeah, so if someone said to me, Rob, you're broke, it wouldn't hurt me at all because I'm rich. If someone said, Rob, you're ugly, it wouldn't hurt me at all because I think I'm quite good looking. However, if someone said, Rob, you've got a few wrinkles on your forehead, that would probably hurt because they are right. So if you know what you're good at and own it, no one can hurt you with what they say. But also, if you accept with humor, I've got these little sort of slightly balding bits here that my kids always take the piss out of. People take the piss out of that in my videos. I've got some, grey hairs here. I rant and shout and scream a bit. I'm not very elegant, and I'm more of a brute force and ignorance kind of person. That's okay. I know that about myself. There's upsides to that. Yeah. So know who you are.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial thing is really diving into who you are as a person, because if they do, kind of poke at something, you're like, yeah, I know. That's just who I am. And make light of it, I think, so the best thing. And you hear hurt people. So those people, a lot of times, they're dealing, like you said, with their own life issues, and that's the best way they can deal with it. And they don't take responsibility; they just try to project it on someone else. And but yeah, I think it's important. I think you've got to pick your sides, right, on different things, and stick to them. Otherwise, you're kind of in the middle of the road. You're going to get hit from both directions. You got to pick which side you're going to go with.
Yeah, and this is why having an ideal client profile and knowing who you talk to in your business is a good idea. So I did this April Fool where I was running for Mayor of London, and it got thousands of people fell for it. But the reason a lot of people fell for it was because I was the sort of person who would vote for me and my policies in my April Fool Mayor of London. They are my people.
Yeah.
So I was talking to my people. So if you're clear on your ideal profile and know who you're for and not for, then you can just know your tribe, know your people, care about them, pull your energy into them, and don't worry about everyone else. Now, I know that's in theory easy to say. I'll give you another little tip here.
Yeah.
Because, if you're busy making shit happen, you haven't got time to read all the bloody comments and worry about what everyone's saying about you. So I'm relatively impenetrable for the opinions of other people. I've got thousands of trolly comments online because obviously I've got nearly 3 million followers. So I'm relatively impenetrable. And the only time I would ever in any way be mildly breakable is when I'm sitting there all day, every day, reading the comments and bathing in all the misery. But if I'm busy making shit happen and changing the world, and I'm, working a good solid day, and I'm, I always make sure I do kind things every day because I think that's important and it makes you feel good. I always make sure that I help people every day. I always make sure that I focus on making money every single day, put some money in the bank. And, I always try and make sure that I've got 130 staff, so I try and make sure that they're all busy. That's going to take up most of my. I ain't got time. Oh, Chris is trolling me. I haven't got time to even hear what he said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a crucial thing because people, they think they're busy, but, they're wasting so much time giving energy and time to those things. And, I want to kind of, as we're kind of getting close to the end of the episode here, is go back and touch on something you said, because obviously we talked about taking risks when there's nothing else. I mean, there's nothing really. You have nothing. So there's nothing, excuse me. So there's nothing really to lose. So, take those risks. But what you said, it was interesting. You said, now where Rob is, he's got a lot to lose, right? He's got a lot of properties. He's got a lot of people working for him. He's got a whole bunch. So how, if we, navigate through the early stages, get, success, how can we still be a disruptor, but still make sure we're not putting us in a position to lose it all?
Yeah, so this is something I never really thought I'd ever be talking about, Chris, because I started in business when I was 27 and now I'm 45. And I was maybe a little bit more fearless, maybe a little bit more cocky and bold, when I was younger. And I sometimes look at myself now and think, am I playing a bit safe? Have I lost some of that edge? Am I naturally aging? And I think the answer is no, because I still feel young and the personality is still within me to be that guy. The honest answer is, I have 2 children who are 9 and 13. I have a pretty risk-averse wife. I have a pretty risk-averse business partner. I have 130 staff. I have a lot of cars. I have a lot of properties that we manage, 1,350. I have the UK's largest property training company. I've written a load of books. I've got millions of followers. And, one big smear campaign, one big wrong business move, or one small wrong business move, one security attack, and now I'm like, shit, and I've got a whole load of stuff to lose and a lot of reputation. Yeah. And I try not to obsess and worry about that, Chris, because it can really play with your mind. And so you can be very defensive instead of aggressive. However, there's a time for that. A few little tips on how, if anyone's watching and listening and they can relate to what we've just said, they're not a young buck and they've got a bit to lose, or they'd love to start their own business, Chris, but they've got a good career and they're making quite good money. And that's sometimes a trap.
Yeah.
So number one is you can diversify your risk. So whether that is starting a side hustle evenings and weekends before you quit the high-paying job, that's diversifying the risk a little bit. Certainly with money, you can diversify your money into different assets, not all into one business class. You can have some defensive assets like gold. You can have some sort of pretty safe and secure assets like real estate. You can have some more high-risk assets like cryptocurrency. Yep. So that's another way you can de-risk. Another way to de-risk is knowledge. One of the best de-risks is what you know, because the more you learn, the more you earn. And generally speaking, the people who have the greatest amount of knowledge in a niche married up with the greatest amount of experience will win. So you can always educate your way through. And then the last thing I would say as a tip is what Richard Branson taught me, which was protect the downside first and then take the leap. So, when he started an airline, he did a deal where he essentially almost got like a buyback clause where if the business didn't work, he could sell the plane back. Because obviously the airplanes are the biggest overhead in an airline by a long way.
Yeah.
So, you can negate risk like that with, if you buy real estate, you can do a delayed completion, or you can have an option to purchase later, and you can do things which de-risk to the start.
Okay. Yeah, I think those are great tips and great things to think about. And it's been great time chatting with you. I've appreciated everything you shared. I think people can take a lot from this and start implementing and start, being a little bit more disruptive in their own day-to-day lives and their businesses to kind of set themselves apart. But, you got robmoore.com, you got the Disruptors podcast. Is there anything else you want to guide people to connect with you or learn more from you?
Yeah, well, because I've got so much content out there, I've been doing this nearly 20 years. I've got 19 books, including Money and Money Matrix. I've got actually 2 podcasts with over 1,000 episodes. So I would say the best place is my central hub, which is called rob.team. So that's my digital financial freedom platform where I help people start and scale their business and make, manage, and multiply more money. And there's a community of, I think we've had about 10,000 members since we launched. And it costs less than 22, I think it's 19 pence a day to be a member. But within there, you've got hundreds of hours of courses, resources, and masterclasses. So I would say that was the best place to go to find a central resource for everything that I do. And you just literally type in rob.team, rob.team.
Awesome. Yeah, so everybody listen, I mean, if anything resonated with what Rob talked about today, you want to hear more from him, learn more from him, definitely go check that out, get connected with him, and continue to become a disruptor in your own markets. Again, Rob, thanks so much for being on the Elevate Media podcast today.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Chris, for having me.
Absolutely.